Welcome to As I Live and Grieve, a podcast that tells the truth about how hard this is. We're glad you joined us today. We know how hard it is to lose someone you love and how well-intentioned friends and family try so hard to comfort us. We created this podcast to provide you with comfort, knowledge, and support. We are grief advocates, not professionals, not licensed therapists. We are you.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back once again to As I Live and Grieve. I hope you're all doing okay. For me, it's been kind of what I call a hot mess express week. Just, everything. I've had to shift things around on my calendar. I've had to really be flexible. But you know what? I've learned how to do that, and it hasn't really hurt me one bit. I've managed to do it. And I've also managed it, thankfully, with the help and support of people like my guest today, who I am going to introduce. You've heard her before. She's back again. Today, I'm dubbing her the Afterlife Correspondence Coach, Jamie Lee. Hi, Jamie Lee. Welcome back.
Well, hi. So great to see you again, Kathy.
Well, I'm just tickled pink with our topic today, and I know our listeners are really going to be interested in this as well. So let's just get started. And if you would just start initially by just kind of updating our listeners and reminding them of who is the Afterlife Correspondence Coach.
Thank you for asking. I'm Jamie Lee Silver, and I came by the title Afterlife Correspondence Coach quite honestly, and that is because about 8 years ago, my son, Ben, he was 22 years old, and he was a star runner and a tiny little guy, but he had brought his team to victory over and over in high school. And he thought that he would do the same in college, and he got himself a full ride scholarship. And I just have to tell you that being a mom was the most delightful treat of my whole life. I was an all-in mommy on the floor, the toys, playing with them as often as I could. I made my life work so that I had time with my babies and my young boys. Right. And then when they got into high school, I have two boys, Aaron, 2.5 years older than Ben. Aaron and I are very close. We talk all the time. Mm-hmm. And what happened with Ben, who was a singer and a songwriter and a poet and fast as the wind, he was also the shortest boy in his class. So he stood up for people when they got bullied because he knew what it was like.
Right.
And he got this sense of humor and this quick wit and this sparkle in his eye, and people loved him. Whenever I saw him, there was a little circle of girls even shorter than he was. He was the life of the party. But then he got to an obstacle in life that he couldn't get over. Mm-hmm. And that was that he got himself a full scholarship for college. But actually yesterday was the 11-year anniversary of when he pushed through everything he had, gave everything he got, and medaled as a senior in high school.
Wow.
Track meet.
Nice. 11 years.
Amazing. Yeah. And so he got to college, and somehow he had run himself out. Okay. Something was wrong with this ankle. Mm-hmm. Nobody could ever figure out what it was. And he had to spend his time with the kids on the team and the coach, and he couldn't run. So I don't know of all the details that happened with them, and I don't blame anybody for anything. I just know that my son ended up internally demoralized.
Right.
As would, right?
Sure. It was everything he lived for.
And then his sophomore year of college, he lost his scholarship. Mm. He started smoking pot, and then he started having real mental breakdowns that eventually led, he got kicked out of school because, like I said, he lost his scholarship. And anyway, they didn't actually kick him out, but whatever. He lost his scholarship, but he was in no mental state to go back. Right. And over the next 2.5 years, I watched my son turn into a different person and eventually be diagnosed with schizophrenia, of which, no, there was none of that in my family. Everybody always asks me that. And he was tortured in his head. And how I say he died by suicide. And I like to say he gained his angel wings of his own accord, because the minute he died, like within those 2 weeks when I'm an energy healer, by the way.
Okay.
And I can feel energy. I'm an intuitive. And I could feel that my son was no longer suffering. He had thought that he was going to be chased down and tortured and killed by they.
Right.
Whoever that was. It was so sad. And so, being the spiritual person I am, I've been a practicing Buddhist, I've been a Christian, I've always thought that we have the spiritual connection that's inside of us to everything and anyone that we want.
Right.
And I know, Kathy, I can feel your spiritual heart.
Thank you.
And your love for your listeners.
Thank you. Thank you. Ben suffered from schizophrenia with a huge, complex component of grief himself. He lost so much, and that grief really, really burdened him immensely. So sad to hear his story. However, you have kind of, what's the word I want to say? Found a way to do what virtually every single grieving person wants to do. You have found a way to remain in touch with your Ben. Tell us a little bit about that. How did that happen?
Thank you for asking. So, like I said, I could feel his energy, and I could feel that he no longer had a tortured brain. And I knew that the love that Ben and I shared was lifetimes deep and lifetimes in the future, that nothing could destroy that. And being not in a physical body anymore really didn't mean that much to me. So I sat down, and I'll just show you. Here's the title of my book, and there's Ben again.
Right.
But I sat down and I wrote to him, and I kept my pen on the paper, and he wrote back. And I have to backtrack just a second and to say that at this time, I had discovered EFT tapping.
Okay.
I had been chanting in Buddhism like 2-3 hours a day. I was just ready to receive his message. And that's what I offer the people that I work with, is helping them be ready to receive their messages. So would you like me to read the first passage?
I would love it.
So, dear Ben, soaring above us all, free and flying, you got your way. You ended your torturous road. You are released. And now you will have all of us chanting for you as your mission continues. Right here, right now, forever. I will cry until I run out of tears. I cry in gratitude that you came to me and we shared those 22 years, that we had all those laughs and all those tears and all those laughs. My heart will always be full of my Ben, my Benjamino, my Benja Bunny. Oh, Ben, right through me, laugh through me, live your happiness all around me. My dear boy, I know you never meant to hurt me. Not ever. Ben, maybe you're sitting right next to me on this Friday, right here by the pool. What do you have to say? And I kept my pen on the paper and I just listened and wrote. And my pen, I heard, Mom, I did it. I meant to do it at the time. And I knew it would make you sad, but somehow I still had to do it. I had to obey my mind, my legs, my feet, my incredible surge of strength and courage. I could not say no. It had to happen. And this story is not yet written, is not yet told, but will be. My death and life have meaning, not had meaning, have meaning. Dearest Mom, my closest friend, my absolute love, don't despair. I know You will create a life of meaning, of warmth, and creativity. Together, we will live on. Together, we will always live on. Enjoy the sun. Enjoy this day. Enjoy your life. Your forever.
Wow. I'm struggling with trying to imagine what that must have felt like when you got to the end of that. How did you feel?
Wonderful.
And you were convinced beyond a shadow of a doubt that those were his words given to you. No questions asked.
Yes. And all the times that I've written to him, he is my biggest cheerleader. He has told me what it's like for him. Now, I want to answer that question in two ways, Kathy.
Please.
And one is that if someone is listening and they're not sure about it being that person,
right,
or maybe they just want to tap into their own higher self, I just have to say, I myself am sure. But if somebody listening to this thinks, oh, maybe she just made that up, I want to say that it felt like it was coming through me. And if I made it up, it's still the most comforting thing I could possibly imagine.
And I agree with that 100%, that there are a lot of people, and heaven knows I am a huge skeptic of many, many things. I am not as much a skeptic as I once was. However, the more guests I speak with, the more things I encounter, the more things I experience myself.
Yes.
And I am somebody, I'm borrowing this term, someone called themselves an experiencer. And I just love that term, and I've adopted it for myself. I am an experiencer. If one of my guests tells me of a modality or a practice or a belief, and it piques my curiosity, I have to try it. And I have experienced many things that normally I might not. And each one of those experiences has made me less of a skeptic. So, listeners, think what you will. It matters not whether it was made up, whether it was actually Ben holding her hand and writing those words. What matters is the comfort, the solace, the love it has afforded Jamie Lee. That's what matters. And I believe, and in just a few seconds, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you feel that you can help others learn, acquire, adapt, whatever, so that they may themselves experience this. Is that correct?
That's why I'm here.
And that's why you are called the Afterlife Correspondent.
Mm-hmm.
So you're an Afterlife Correspondent Coach.
Yes.
So how do you go about that? Because I know for a fact that every single person listening out there would love to have just a single message. I know that. I feel it. I sense it. The way AI is popping into the grief world with grief tech. And we know that's not real. You know, you don't have to be a skeptic. Artificial means not real. Yet that's coming in, and people are employing that to help them feel supported and loved. So if someone were to reach out to you and say, Jamie Lee, I have to know, how can I do this?
Yeah.
Where would you start?
I would start with the practice of the EFT, because each person who really wants to do this may also have blocks to doing it.
Okay.
Like resistance of a certain way.
Yes.
Maybe they're angry with the person who died. Maybe they're super angry at themselves. And I just have to tell you, I've worked and tapped and gotten to this point where, and those of you who've lost loved ones, you all know what I mean when I say after Ben died, I was horrified by the what ifs. What if I hadn't? Blah, blah, blah.
Yes. Yes.
What if I had?
Would have, would have, should have.
They're the things that wake you up in the middle of the night.
Yes.
And I don't know if it's especially with the suicide, because I also went through it with my mother, who she didn't die by suicide, but I was like, if only I had a lot of it with her anyway.
It's that way. You always wonder, if I had insisted they go to the doctor sooner, if I had challenged the doctor, if I had jumped in and said no to that medication. There are always those questions. I do think in situations of trauma, suicide, things like that, that it's probably more prominent because after all, you had no warning that was going to happen.
Well, and you blame yourself.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're a mother.
Absolutely.
I was born to keep my children alive.
Yes.
And even if you have warning, because we had 6 very exciting attempts before, even if you have warning, there's still a part of you that believes that it's impossible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'd explore that because I am trained. I'm a clinically certified emotional freedom techniques, EFT tapping professional who has helped thousands of people with grief.
Okay.
To be able to get their lives back, get their sense of self back, and begin rising up rather than sinking down, which we all know is possible. Right after Ben died, it was like there was this huge cavern that opened in the floor in front of me. And I knew that I could just go straight down that hole.
Right.
He was my heart. He was my soul.
Sure.
And my best friend, but being the spiritual person I was, I made a determination to turn poison into medicine. But let me get back to the question asked, like, what would I do? So I would start with what is really aching. What do you want solved? And how is it affecting you in your daily life?
Okay.
And we start right there with things that are upsetting in daily life. And through tapping, and it's such a simple process, being with someone who already loves you, welcomes you, and holds a safe space for you, like me, can move through that initial pain or that pain that's still there.
Right.
And I find it's easier to connect from more of a state of serenity. So that's the first step in the process.
Okay. All right. So you can't just jump into this, grab a pen and put it on paper. You have to work on some things. And I said it in several episodes. Somewhere I saw a quote that grief is not a passive activity.
What a great quote.
You can't just stand there, sit there, and wait for it to happen. You have to take action of some sort. It could be the tiniest little thing. Tiniest little thing, like taking a shower one day when you haven't wanted to do that for days. We all know that feeling.
We all know.
But grief is not a passive activity.
That's right.
So you do have to work on the grief and on yourself in that state of grief. And then at some point, as those things start to resolve, then you reach a point where you can work with the person about that contact.
Oh, yes. And I do have a formula about how to make that happen. And I've led workshops, and right now I'm doing I'm doing this more one-on-one because I've seen how profoundly that one-on-one can really help people.
Sure.
There was somebody that I worked with who, I have so many stories, that had lost her husband and just was in a non-functioning state, really. Just was having a really hard time making it through every day. And after our first visit and the first release of that really prominent emotion through EFT tapping, she started that really the more energetic walk of grief.
Wow.
And you know where it comes from? It comes from self-compassion and loving yourself and loving your emotions. Because the first thing we do in tapping is we recognize the emotion for what it is. Even though I feel so sad and I feel it in my heart, I deeply and completely accept myself.
Okay.
And it gives that sadness. And then we do a round of tapping, that sadness in my heart.
Okay.
And by the end of that round, the tapping the sadness has come down.
Wow.
It's very scientific. And there actually have been many, many studies showing how brain electrodes cortisol goes down as we tap.
Sure.
Which is really exciting.
It's a focused exercise.
And yes,
It's a focus
somatically based.
Yeah,
Somatic,
definitely. And even if someone is skeptical,
yeah,
but they want it so badly, can that be overcome?
Sure.
You said that so positively. I love positivity, and I love the way you said that.
Yes. In some of the workshops I did, I remember somebody who came. He was a family member, and he only came because I'm his aunt, right? And he wanted to support me, but he didn't believe anything was going to happen.
Right.
And he was just there, and I did the whole process. We do tapping, listen to some music. I provide my readers with soundtracks for times when they want to do some crying and remembering, times they want to feel happy. So we really leaned into all the emotions and the emotional release. And afterwards, he was the first one with his hand up because he had gotten a letter from his mother.
Oh.
It was exactly what she would have said. And he was so excited about it that he called all of his family members and he read them that letter. And it gave him peace that is still lasting to this day.
I have so many questions flying through my head. But this one in particular, I need to ask personally. One of my losses was the loss of an infant. Yeah. Less than 24 hours old.
Okay.
That I never saw, never held. No one even took a picture. Is that connection possible?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That infant has a soul. That infant's life is connected to yours. The love and loss that you feel for that infant, you can connect with that infant's everlasting life.
Okay.
Through the written word, you can get messages back. And it's so healing because I would lead you through pouring your heart out to that sweet, sweet soul and saying everything that you'd like to say. That's part of the process.
Yeah. Well, listeners can't see, but they can tell that I'm not completely stable at the moment. But at any rate, that was 50 years ago. And with society and culture being what it was then, something like that happened. And what were you told? Move on.
Get over it.
Move on. Get over it. There were no counselors. There was no EFT. There were no modalities to help with grief.
Yeah.
You just picked yourself up, put on your big girl panties, so to speak.
Yep.
And moved on.
That's right.
And it wasn't until this podcast.
Yeah.
That really all of that has come back.
Yeah.
Full force.
Yes. It's like a balloon in the water, right?
It is.
You can push it down.
Right.
But it's still there.
Okay. Moving on. Another phrase that you mentioned a while ago was turning poison into, was it magic or medicine? Poison into medicine. What did you mean by that?
That is how I live my life. It actually is a phrase from Nichiren Buddhism that I've practiced since 1985. And it means really turning every poison into medicine, no matter what. And when Ben died, I was writing a blog at the time, chantforhappiness.com, and I had 60,000 readers a month at that time. And I sat down and I said, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. And I'm going to turn this into something that helps other people. And I don't know how yet, but I know that I'm going to do it. And so that's just the way I live my life every day, turning poison into medicine. Now, do you have more questions for me, or do you want me to read you a little bit more about where he says he is? Okay. I can't hear you. I hope your listeners can. Okay. So check it out. And I hope this encourages you, all of you, everyone, because as I was writing Ben's words, I knew that they were for me, but they weren't just for me. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity to share them. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, Kat.
Oh, my pleasure.
I wrote him another letter, and I said, every day I wake up and I wonder if I'm in some kind of dream. The thought of never being able to hug you again and never hearing your voice just seems so impossible. Do you have any words for me, heart of my heart, dear child of mine? Your loving mom. And he said, Mom, it is not over. Our love goes on. Nothing can keep us apart. Not time, not space, not death. Not even death. We are together forever and ever. And these words are meant for you, Kathy, right now. Even if it looks like I'm gone, I'm not. I'm right here beside you, smiling at you with my arms around you and running towards you. You know, seeing my smile, feeling our embrace, that this lifetime is not all, is not it, is not over. We will live on. We do live on in every incarnation, laughing, loving, with our hearts smiling. This lifetime, this last one, I got sick. I got so sick. But the next one, watch out. We'll be born again together. And all that negative karma will be gone. And we will share, bask, bask, bask in the light of our love.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Do you feel that?
I do feel it. And I think listeners can tell in my voice that I feel it.
Yeah.
Sadly, but you know, that is the perfect place, I think, to wind down this particular episode for a couple of reasons. One is so that I can kind of regain a little control. But this is the point in the podcast where I actually turn the microphone over to my guest. So, Jamie Lee, the floor is yours. Tell my listeners what you would like them to hear.
Kathy, thank you. Thank you so much. Listeners, one of the things I did after Ben became my angel was I went to a suicide support group. And around that table, everyone was lamenting. I never got my note. And inside my heart was nothing but gratitude for this gift I've been given that I want to give to you. And that is, I got my note after he became my angel, and I get my note every time I write to him. And it has helped immensely with my grieving process. And I would go so far as to say, and I know this isn't really this goes against some of the things that we think about grief, but I live my life in a state of appreciation and happiness, including for Ben.
Yes.
I didn't have to give birth to that boy and have him for 22 years, but I did. And the journey that he set me on to heal myself and to help others with their suffering, that is a gift. And it's my greatest pleasure to give that to the people I work with. And if any of this appeals to you, please send me an email. It's tapforhappiness@gmail.com. And it's TAPFOR, happiness@gmail.com. My website is tapforhappiness.com. We can hop on a call and, explore if this is something that you want to do. And I'm here for you. And I'm a safe, loving space for anything that you need to explore.
So well said. So the things I want to convey to our listeners, I don't know how you could listen to the past 34 minutes and listen to Jamie Lee, listen to the words she wrote and the words that she heard back from her Ben. I don't know how you could listen to any of that and not be the least bit curious and not wonder, at the very least, if you might also be able to achieve that with your departed loved one or loved ones. Gosh, think what that would be, communicating not with one person you lost, but maybe with both parents and your spouse and that infant. So consider it. Her contact information, as with all of our guests, will be in the podcast notes. It'll be on our website. And as she says, just reach out. Now, I advocated profusely on the last 2 episodes and challenged listeners to do just a couple of things, keeping in mind that grief is not a passive activity. It requires action. So I challenged our listeners in the last episode particularly to do one thing, and it only requires one word. You click tapforhappiness@gmail.com. One word, help. That's all. Sign your name and send it. One word. Won't you do that? It's a great way that you can practice self-care. And I am confident, just as sure as I'm sitting here, speaking to those of you all around the world. And I know there are many of you in countries that I'm really not familiar with, in all honesty. But somehow you have connected with me and you're listening. And we are now bonded in our grief journeys. So reach out, please, to Jamie Lee. You won't be sorry. Take care of yourself. Catch you again next week as we all continue to live and grieve. Thank you, Afterlife Correspondent.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening with us today. Do you have a topic that you'd like us to cover, or do you have a question from one of our episodes? Please email us at info@asilivengrieve.com and let us know. We hope you will find a moment to leave a review, send an email, and share with others. Join us next time as we continue to live and grieve together.